Hey party people, this is Jeremy from Jimbo Lab Plays Games. And today I'm here with a review of Tsukuyumi, which is published by Racoon Games. Greyfox Games actually sent me a copy of this because they're coming out with a minis version of this game, and this is a standee version of the first edition from the first Kickstarter with Racoon. So let's get into it. This is an area control game that's made up of modular tiles, and the players are scoring the most points, but of course spreading themselves around these specific types of tiles and scoring different kinds of points. But that's not the only thing, otherwise it'd just be a regular area control game, right? These all are asymmetrical factions with their own powers and goals, and there's some shared goals. There's a faction called the Oni that has thrust itself onto the planet in this big moon tile, and they are controlled by all the players. There's crazy card play that goes on in this game where what you play, there's also a reaction that the other player can choose how this all plays out. And there's just a lot of other things that I'll cover, but you'll see that in today's review. You'll also find out what my opinion of the game is, and then you can make an informed decision yourself. Don't worry, I'll be critical. I'll try to be as detailed as possible, and that's why this is a long review. But hopefully you can make an informed decision on whether you want to buy this or maybe back the eventual one that's coming up on Kickstarter very soon here. So let me go ahead and get to it. Long opening for a big review. So let's go ahead and get to the table. So this is a faction board, and I want you to kind of see what you're getting so you kind of get an idea of, hey, like this is how do I choose this stuff? What's so cool about these different types of things? I think I want to start with the board, of course. That's important, right? So this is one of the factions, the Cyber Samurai. It's going to tell you how difficult it is, and the icon, and let you know, hey, this is where I am and this is who we are. I mean, the color is pretty specific, and this is going to be your starting board, so you're going to know the color as well. I just like that they're very vibrant and recognizable. But you're going to have your faction power, and some of these different factions do not have one of these or the other, depends. So this one right here, they have a 10-0 sub AI. It's actually right here, and it's going to tell you, hey, this is what attacks you do, whatnot. This is actually a really complicated one, but you get it as you get to the hang of it. It's also going to tell you the different unit types you have. Like this one has little attack drones and little guys, and they get upgraded. And then it also is going to show you the links. As you can see, this is what it takes to upgrade these. So one upgrade action does this, two upgrade actions does that, and sometimes they'll even say, hey, if you already have these, it only takes +1 to upgrade to here. Different types of things like that. You're also going to know your setup. So I don't have all the stuff here, all the pieces here. I got some over here on the side over here, so you don't even see all of them. But here you got the different types of units. It's going to tell you everything that you need to know, and then specific stuff. Hey, when you produce X happens. Okay, so that's pretty cool, right? A couple other things. So like I said, mine has AI. Cool thing about this samurai group is they build these AI, and they build these like little attack drones for offense and defense. Just really cool stuff here. Over here, this is actually, these tokens are used so that when you conquest and you control certain areas, that's what you know you'll have. And then these are also used for scoring points, so you know how many points you have on the board. Like I said, all this stuff is not out here. Let's go ahead and look at some of these different types of warriors here. And the art's just really good overall, which I like. Here we go, I'll bring that closer to you. And what you're going to see on here is the number right here is the conquest. This is what you use to take over an area, and you have to have more than the other player in order to take it over. This is their health, this little red here, and then also their attack. Now this is a standee thing, and I think if you look at the Greyfox one that's coming up soon, it's going to have miniatures. But I'm going to go ahead and point out a flaw right now, and that is these little standees. As you can see, they're really tight to get into, and you see that little flip right there? That's because I've scarred this, and that happens. There's over 100 of these things to put in there, and maybe I was a little fatigued, but when you put these in there, you are kind of risking it all, even if you slide them in there, but you only slide them in there one time. So it's like, you know, it's not really all that bad, but it just stinks when you see that happen. You're like, oh no. Each character, each faction gets a set of cards. And this is, like I said, this game is really about card play. So let me speed through this real quick. You're going to have an Annihilation, which is an attack card. You're going to have a Conquest card, and everybody's going to have these two at least. They're going to tell you what you're doing and how you're doing it, and how things play out, which we'll get into a little bit later. You're also going to have a faction-specific or a couple faction-specific cards that, you know, basically use your asymmetrical powers, and they're also going to have their own set of reactions to them as well. But these are really cool. I mean, like some of the ones that you can pull off are just ridiculous. And like I said, finally you're going to have this card here, which everybody can put a scoring token on and complete, but this is just a version of another way you can score as well. While we're at it, why don't we go ahead and take a look at these other factions. Boom, we have the Borderlands. These guys right here, they make different like little routes called terraforming routes and blockade routes and things like that, but they upgrade their little squeaker little squeakers, and then they update them to these different types of warriors, and then all of a sudden they become these buffed out warriors as things go along. I really like this faction, although they're a little slow play, but they kind of kick butt. Then we have these Kropagan. These are big, and even though they're really cool. They actually have big units. They don't even have a lot of units. They have big units, and they have big defense and big offense. They actually shoot from range too, and as you can see, they can make missiles, and they also can make an atomic bomb. It's absolutely ridiculous how how much damage they can cause. You have the Nomads, and the Nomads are your human factors. Now you're thinking, oh, humans, boring. They actually make weapons and get stronger, but they also have movement, and they have ways of moving across the board really quick. Once they start mobbing up, though, they start killing it. Speaking of mobbing up, oh my goodness, this faction right here is the most irritating on the planet. I swear to you, 2 games I played, they're terrible. A couple games I played, man, it's just, two of the games I played are just ugly. Darkseed, they spread like crazy. They drop eggs everywhere, and as long as these people are traveling across the board, they are going to cause ruckus. And then what happens is, as they produce, some of these productions are amplified based on these whatever type you have out here, and they can hatch a whole bunch of eggs out in the middle of the board. It's ridiculous, but these are really cool by design. It's just that, man, they're rough to deal with, but definitely for your aggressive players out there, this is going to be the one. So as you can see, I've just kind of talked about all that stuff. It's a lot, but I wanted you to see how this stuff is set up, and then I'm just going to set up a board, and then we'll just get to it. Hey, so dig this. We are looking at a map for 3-player, and I'm on a kind of a shaky cam standing up here, but I wanted you to see just how big this board is. We just set it up. These are all tiles that you can do. You can pull out a random. You can, for the setup, and different setups will say, hey, you can only have X amount of fertile tiles, which are the green tiles over there, or mountains, or you can and can't have certain things, or certain are radioactive. They will even tell you where you can and can't place things. But as you can see, the player factions are on the outside of the board there, and that's where they'll be set up. And then you kind of setting them to be spread out a certain way, but you get a certain amount of locations, and then you move from there. But we'll see a little bit closer. I just wanted you to see the setup here. This big one right here, this moon, is called the Oni. This is like kind of the moon, so there's Oni on there, and they already control that area when they start. You control some areas when you start. We're going to be kind of in the middle of a game, but let's just go ahead and get to it. I just want you to see the table presence of this game. This is a sideboard area, and you need to keep track of things because this is actually another little place where cards will come from in the game and how you track your scoring. Now you're going to have 3 rounds in this game. That's the shortest game, and then there's 4 and 5. Just depends on how long you want the game to be. That could be 1.5 hours to all the way up to 3, just depending on how many you have in the player count. 3-player game. Hour and a half, 2 hours. It just, especially if it's a learning game, it's going to be longer. You got your faction. These are not your faction cards, but these are faction cards that come from your faction decks that everybody can do. So I want to destroy 3 enemy units. That's pretty easy. Control 1 of each type of tile, which I'll show you in a second. And then you have conquer Tsukuyumi areas. So you just have different little areas that you have to take care of. And then you also have these event cards, and these event cards you can actually keep in your hand, or you can use them right away. Sometimes you want to keep those so you can play them at different times and use them to your advantage. This is also your scoring area. Now as you conquer tiles at the end of the game, you're going to actually stack those on there, but as you conquer these things right here, you finish these tasks, you're going to put those on there immediately. Certain things score immediately, and then like your faction power, your faction quest thing, once you complete that one, that scores there immediately. At the end of the round, if you own one of the Oni tiles in the center of the moon, you score that immediately. And those are just certain things that you score immediately, but at the end of the game, it's also going to be contingent upon how many of these tiles you own. So all these will count as 1 point at the end of the game. But we're going to, and also this one right over here, this fertile tile way in the back, that's worth 2 points. I'll show you that on the overview card. I'm going to move over here real quick so I can get you a good angle. So this is a round overview, and I'm going to show you from the Borland's perspective, but this is a really good walkthrough of a round. It's not really that hard to walk through because you have this card. It also shows you how things are scored. We're going to go choose an action card of the 6 that we start with. We'll choose one of these, and then we'll pass the remaining 5 to our left. And everything that we do is in turn order over here. And what this means is that we're going to take all the actions in that phase, and then the player to the left will go, or the player, I'm sorry, next in turn order will go. It also shows you how things are scored during the game and how things are scored after the game. So certain things you get instant points for. All the iconography, units, radioactive, those things, how they react, and what they can and can't do. And then these are the type of tiles. So the ocean floor tiles are going to make up the majority of the tiles. They don't have any special characteristics. The fertile tiles, fertile ground is what people are going to fight over because those are 2 points apiece. And then you have the mountain range, which is harder to conquer. But there's actually some troops that don't pay attention to that. Actually, the nomads over there don't. And then you have some expansion ones, which I do not know anything about. So let's go ahead and start, let's see, in the white phase. So the white phase, I'm going to go ahead and look at these cards. I'm going to decide on a card, and really what you're paying attention to, because all the backs are the same, or is right here, I'm sorry, the fronts are the same, the backs, okay? And it's going to show you when we get to the blue phase, green phase, and red phase. And the reason why this choice is important is because you're never going to use all of these. Even if you played a 5-round game, you have 6 cards, you're not going to be able to use all of them. So you're using one and you're passing. You don't know what the other player has. So that's important, because this is what the game comes down to. How many actions do I want to take in which phase? And generally the blue is like, hey, faction powers, move up down the scale, draw cards. This one right here is going to be produce and sometimes Oni actions. This one right here is basically all combat and movement. So you have all those things that you got to pay attention to. I'm going to take aggressive. Yeah. Just so I can show, okay, yeah, we'll do on the hunt. So we'll do on the hunt because it's got a range of actions. But we're not starting there. We're going to start here at the action phase, a white phase. So the white phase is really simple. You're going to, let's see, I'm going to draw a card. And I have choices here, 2 different choices, and then that would be the end of my turn. So I get this one action, and it says 1, I get one of those. I'm going to go ahead and draw a card. And I can play it or I can keep it. I can have a certain hand limit. I believe it's 5. This one says I can execute a combat action. And most of these are going to be moving up and down the turn order, putting new tiles on top of things, adding radioactive, doing all that kind of stuff. I'm going to go ahead and keep this card. I'm not going to execute a combat action right now. Borderlands need to kind of mob up a little bit, and I don't necessarily want to do that. I'm just going to show you how to move. So let's go ahead and show you how to move. And then let's see here. So movement is really simple. I'm going to get a little bit closer so you can see movement. Okay. And while we're here, you can see these blockade tiles. I can't move through those, but the Borderlands have a specific power, these terraforming things that help them move through this stuff. So let's say on this action, I can move all my people. When it says move, it says move each of your units in your faction. So I can move them all together like that, or I can move them in one space. Now the cool thing about them is they have this terraforming thing where they can move for free through these terraforming things. At least one guy can. And then they can take that one movement. So I can move like that. Okay, so I want to move all my troops. Let's just say I'm going to do that. And since I can move in here, I'm going to move the Boar Mother. That was no movement. And then I'm going to move here. I don't want to go to that radioactive tile over there because I don't want to go to that radioactive tile all the way up there, because that actually will kill me if I'm there at the end of the round. Maybe this shouldn't be there. All right, because that's really kind of not possible. All right, so that was my movement. I don't want to lose this little guy here. I want him to kind of evolve on his own. And that would be my movement. And then I would move over to the next player. That would be the Robo Samurai. But I'm going to go ahead and skip to the blue phase, and I'm going to move over to another unit. So I have the Samurai's card that they chose, and this one right here has a couple different things in the blue area. Now blue is going to be moving up the track, moving up the turn order track, events, and then your faction effect. And that's kind of what I want to get to. All this stuff was self-explanatory. We did that. We want to look at the faction effect, and everybody has a different one. This one right here is all about uplinks, and those are the things that buff all these things, and also gives you cool attacks that you can do. That's what they're all about, this tech. So I'm going to grab these here, and this is the Tenno sub AI. So they're going to have different AIs that give them different actions and things like that. Some of them are going to be offensive and defensive, just depends. Or create different units. I'm going to use this one that's called Tetsu because maybe I bought it and developed it through upgrades. This one right here is going to cost 10 damage to in any area. In fact, and I can choose the target. You know what I'm going to do. I'm going to take out some of these boar because they're weak. And then I'm going to go ahead and look for one of them. Ooh, I think it's going to be you, buddy. Sorry. Let's see this little, hey, this is actually really important too. A boyer is important because they set up those terraforming things each round, okay? Each production, they have production points. I'm going to go ahead and take him out because he only has 10 health. Boom. Squeak. Okay, so he's gone. And that would be one of the things I can do. Now, I may have, let's see, some of the other things that samurai will have, these samurai will have it there in that blue phase for a faction effect. They can also use these rockets, and these rockets help with disabling factions, powers, and things like that. So they can actually put that marker there, and they stop all the uniqueness of another faction's powers. And that's really, really cool. I think that's a really interesting thing. I'm also going to go ahead and use the green phase. Now, the green phase is going to have a combination of things. So everybody goes around and does their blue phase, and that's their turn. So we come all the way back around, and now we're at the green phase. And I can move each of my units to areas. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and move up a little bit here. Hopefully move safely. And I'm just going to move my units safely here. I can't move through here, so I'm going to go ahead and move. I'm going to move these guys all in here. That's 1 and 2. I'm going to keep these people here safe. And I can, like I said, I don't have to use all my movement. I just did that. That is part of my green phase. And then we're going to execute one Oni conquest. So now we're talking about Oni. And this is one of the things you want to pay attention to with them. They are going to move around, and they have all different types of powers. There's so many different types of these, and these can be controlled by other players because it says Oni conquest. Their job is to go around this board and actually take over. And what that does is it changes where they can pop up at, and they can kind of pick away and conquer these areas. It takes points off the board for everybody. So let's say they go over here. We're paying attention to their conquest. And once I said, conquest is one of those actions that you pay attention to what's going on. And once you hit conquest, one of the cards, you give this to another player and they decide what happens afterwards. But conquest starts like this. We look at these two characters and we look at their conquest amount. So over here on the top left is going to be their conquest amount. The Oni has 20 and they have 15. They have to have more in order to do it. So I have 15. That's not good enough. So now, first of all, the Oni can take that over. Let me grab one of these. So the Oni can take that over. Now, once that's determined, now the Borlands have a chance to respond, and they can use their defensive unit power. They can use their defensive power. They could counterattack. Maybe they do have enough strength to attack, but they can't stop you from conquesting. They could retreat. Thou shalt not pass. If the defender has more conquest points than the Oni factions, they may mark the area with one of their territories. So that's important. And then it says the defender may place one Oni according to the rules. So they can kind of change things up. There's a lot of choices to be made here. But I think you're just going to go ahead and retreat, which is going to take one movement like that. And that's going to be their movement, and that's going to be their green phase. Now let's go ahead and go to the red phase, and we're going to show that from the nomad perspective. Okay, I'm going to show you a little bit about this red phase here, which is basically a move and attack area, and you have attack actions. But I want to talk about the Oni one more time real quick, because why are they so important, and what do you want to use them for? Because they are kind of a game changer to the asymmetric gameplay that's going on here. Now, they are neutral characters, but they are trying to dominate this board. They want a little of the board with their markers just like you. They don't score points, but they stop other people. So I can put these big beefy ones here. Let's say I could place 2, but I can place them next to spaces that they own. So for example, I could put them there so I could put pressure. I can put them over here to put pressure on conquering. I could put one of them here, and then that would take care of a conquest, because if, let's say, they had another conquest going on, I could go ahead and take that away, or I could take this one away with everybody that's there. We could do so many different things, but I definitely want to take this because that would basically take that 1 point away from my opponent going in, okay? And that would actually help them spread around, which is really interesting. So it's really cool to have these neutral characters in the way, so you don't, you're kind of left unfocused for a little bit. All right, so let's get back over to the nomads here. Now the nomads have some special movement stuff, so let's go ahead and use it first. I get to move my troops too, so I'm going to go ahead and move these up here because I want to conquer that. I'm going to go ahead and move them right in here because I want to take this over and get the point. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the doggy in there, and then I'm going to move the humans up in here. Sorry about that. That was a little extra. And I'm going to move this guy in here. Now, Lieutenant Dan has a cool thing where you can move through him and get extra movement. So that's pretty cool. So now I can actually do, after movement, I can do my attacks, my combat actions, which are annihilation, which is attack, or conquest. And it depends on which ones I want to use. They give you a ton of options in response. Okay, but I'm going to start with the conquest because conquest over here, there's no resistance. And I also need 15 to conquest, but she has a special power where she ignores it. But I already have 15 conquest points anyway. There's nobody there to physically resist me, so I get to do that one, and I get to push that there. Now, I want to show you that I've also fulfilled one of the winning conditions over there for a point. Remember, everybody contributes one of these to the board, and we can get a point for them. I score that immediately, so I'm going to go ahead and put that point on there. So I've scored a point already. And that's one of the things you can do. So we had 3 players, we had 3 different ones, so I could fulfill the other 2. Now I'm going to do my other combat action, which is we're actually going to use a special attack instead of using this. So now I'm going to use guerrilla attack. It says if you have at least as many conquest points as your opponent, mark this area with one of your territory markers. All right, so I have, let's see, conquest points. Let's see. I have the 2 guys out here have 30. That's 20 here, 10 here. I have 10, 20, 35. So I can go ahead and mark that with my marker. Boom. Awesome. All right, so I've already taken that over. Now I just need to control that at the end of the round. What's the next part here? So it says, hey, in addition to the conquest, you may damage with as many weapons as possible. Usually it's just 1. And then it says, as you have units in this area, the nomads units themselves don't do damage. Well, guess what? The humans have these weapons that can help add to their attacks. Normally you can use 1, but now I can use multiple ones. And they already have, let's see, they need 30. They got 30 health, 20, 10. I'm going to go ahead and use this grenade for 25, and then this one right here for 35. So that's 35. That takes all of them out. It takes them out, but they get a chance to respond, and they can respond with their with defense, and they do have defense, so they can use some of their their defense matrix, which allows them to use that rocket power we were showing you before, the uplinks they had before, or they can double their health to 60. And that would take some of them out, okay? So they could do their defense, they could do all kinds of, there's just so many different things they can do to kind of hold themselves up. So you have choices, that's the thing. You always have choices. Or they can disrupt how I communicate and stop me from executing more actions, so that's why I did that in that order. Or, you know, they just have choices. Also, I can retreat. If I wanted to, I could jump out of there. Just depends on how you want to do it. I'm going to stay there, and let's say the round ended. I'm going to go ahead and also score 1 point because I do own the middle square. Remember, that middle one is worth 1 extra point, and that's what we're trying to do, is score points. You know, score the most points, and you can play to a certain amount of score, or you can play, you know, 1, 3, 4, or 5 rounds. But that's the game. I hope you got an idea how epic this game is, because it is epic. You got to use your Oni to your advantage to kind of distract people, especially when you have weaker people like the boar. You can use them as defense, or you can just use them as a big offensive rush to other people and just start taking out their points. But let's go ahead and get to my final thoughts. There's so many things I could talk about here. I don't want to go run on. Let's get to it. Hey, party people. Now it is time to talk about this game. Give you my final thoughts on it. I will be fair, so I just want to let you know this isn't all positive vibes and everything. We're not going to dance. So let's talk about the actual audience for this game. Dudes on the map, area control, that can be an all in or all out for people, but I can tell you, for people who like that stuff, this is fantastic. This game is fantastic. It has a very simple core to it, what you're trying to do. You know how you score points, you know the factions and how they do it. But I think that Oni thing is just a game changer, which I'll touch on again in the gameplay. But for people who are not, let's say, dudes on the map, area control type thing. You just got to pay attention to how I was showing you all the mechanics and see if it works for you. I would just say for me, who was kind of on the fence about that stuff, those are two things that I'm kind of not so into completely, but I'm learning it right now. This was great. And a couple people who are like that too, just really didn't know if they would like it. They just tried it because I'm trying games. They liked it too. So that just lets you know what's going on. Of course, we don't know if they're going to buy it or not. So components. You have some really good solid boards for the tiles, the components of the characters and stuff like that. But I remember I was really disappointed with the way those things go in there, and they tore them up, and that is just not cool. Right? But the thing is that they only go in once. It didn't bother me. It just hurt to see that beat up like that. But all the chips, all the tiles, the player boards could be cardboard. That's a nitpick for me, but I'm fine with that. Everything else is just top notch. The art is absolutely amazing. Love the fact that they have a comic book in there, in the books. And I'll just even say the books are absolutely amazing. The rule book is great. The codex book explains absolutely every card, every action, counterattack, attack, and even explains the factions. That is a much needed thing. You can even pass it around while you're teaching the game so people can get an idea of what to do. That is a major plus. Let's talk about gameplay real quick. The gameplay in this game is fantastic. It is, the card play is what really surprised me about this game, because you're thinking dudes on the map, asymmetrical powers. The big one is the choices you make with these cards, man. Like, you're going to get a certain amount of cards and pass these along. You're not even going to get the same cards you passed along, depending on the player count, depending on how many rounds you play. And I like that you can play different amounts of rounds and even just do points. But yeah, it's just like, hey, do I try to draw more cards this turn? Do I just try to put as many Oni out there and move things around so people get frustrated and irritated so they can take away those points and start doing conquest? Or do I just combat real hard? And you got all these cards to choose from, and they have weight, especially when you play 3 rounds. You can only get so much done. And all those choices are important. They feel important. And I love the fact that those Oni are really cool. I love that element of the game. It definitely ramps it up a notch. But the factions, the combination of the factions that are just absolutely cool. I like the way they all play. I only got to play with a couple of them, but just even futzing around with them and seeing how other players play them was just really, really interesting. This game does not waste my time at all, but I definitely could see someone not want to play a game that's this long. So that would be a preference for me. And I don't know if you'd be down for 2 hours, maybe even 3 hours of a game. I would say the closest you can get to 90 minutes is after you know the game. It's going to be about 2 hours, even if you're going to play like 1 to 3 rounds. And maybe you can just go to 10 points or something like that in the game. But other than that, this game is a smart design, great card play, asymmetry is on point, the whole area control and how it plays out. These make a combination for a very good game, and I cannot wait to see more from it. So I give this a high recommendation. This is a fantastic product, and I can't wait to see what they do, Greyfox does with this game, because I will be staying tuned to this Kickstarter myself, just so you know. But yeah, there's a couple of little nitpicks in there, and I think they're definitely worth thinking about and whether they fit you. But overall, this game is fantastic in my not so humble opinion. This game is cool. All right, so I'll leave it there. And you can decide what you want to do with your money when the Kickstarter does start. But for right now, please ask me any questions in the comments below. You can feel free to like and subscribe. I would really, really appreciate that. And also, thank you so much for sticking around today. I know this is a big review, but hopefully I try to make people make an informed purchase. So there you go. You guys have a wonderful day. Take care.